We see the protests largely peaceful right now. There have been a few minor little incidents, a few arrests today, certainly nothing like occurred yesterday, but they're bracing for the worst. Hopefully it won't happen as it starts to get darker.
Wolf, what I would like to see is some leadership from the president on down on what the police do about the fact that Baltimore in the last 27 months had 632 murders, and according to Commissioner Batts, 95% of the murdered people were black. That's an average of 23 murders per month. Where's the outrage about that, or about doing something about that? And secondarily, what do the police do to bring that number down? What is the policing on the street when you have this many people? And the 600 murders weren't outside agitators. They were gang members and members of that community, you know, that he's referred to. And he actually said that he blamed it on gang activity, random confrontations, and the black guerrilla family. That's Commissioner Batts saying that's who's causing that.
Well, let me go to Don Lemon right now. Don, you're there in Baltimore. There's been a lot of accusations against these gang members. I understand you have some representatives with you.
Yeah, we had some representatives of the gang, and we had technical issues. We can't get to them, and you'll have to watch it tonight, Wolf. But it's really interesting because they're saying they had nothing to do with this. They said for the first time that they can remember that the Crips and the Bloods and the Black Guerrilla family, they have come together and there is a truce. They're saying to me, and this is what they're saying to me, they were actually out there trying to protect the community and trying to get people not to loot and not to riot. And I asked them, I said, are you sure about that? They said, yes. Why would we want to loot? Why would we want to riot? And in their estimation, again, they could say it better than me, but they said, we're making money. We don't need to rob a liquor store or a convenience store in order to make money. That's beneath what they do. It has, you know, they're not tempted to do anything like this. But we're showing something positive. We're here at the Druid Hill Park, and just across this park here, you had hundreds of people who are out across the park here. It was organized by many of the people here, and they're from different affiliations here, but mostly from Mr. Stokey Carmichael Kennedy, who is an anti-violence activist. And why'd you guys do this?
I mean, it was necessary. We thought that the kids vocalized their frustration last night, and we strongly condemned that behavior. And we thought it was necessary to come together and unify and bring about a positivity front and give these kids another positive voice and let them know we got their back. We're going to try to seek a different resolution than last night. And we know we don't want our neighborhoods and communities destroyed with violence.
You may recognize this gentleman right here. His name is Will Barton. He's a guard for the Denver Nuggets. He's out here with the foundation as well, right? Why are you here?
I'm here, you know, Stokey gave me a car, linked up with Kanan over here, and we just wanted to come out and show our support and show that, you know, it's another way to go about things to get results. And we feel like if we do it in a positive manner, that we can pull the city together and we can just come together and do some positive things and end this stuff and get results, but in the right way and not, you know, just keep doing violence and rioting and stuff like that, because that's not going to do anything. It's not going to solve anything.
You know, I was surprised earlier by listening to something. They call them, you know, they said it's not about colors, the members of the gangs. And, I mean, they said to me that they didn't have anything to do with this. Is that true?
From my observation, I agree with them. I think yesterday was a mix between juveniles and adolescents who was getting out of high school, and most of those kids was opportunists. They saw opportunity to do some things that pretty much they wouldn't do on a normal day, and they took advantage of it. And, I mean, we condemn that, and that's why today we strongly come together and try to administer a bunch of positive individuals who have a positive influence, like Will, like Gary Neal, who's left, my friend Emmy Jones from New York, who came out here today just to be here to show these kids that we understand their frustration, but they got to redirect and try to bring about a positive resolution, you know, instead of being violent.
You've got food out here. I've had some of the wings. They're really good. You guys saw me eating. I said I feel like I'm at home. I had some wings, chip, and an orange crush. I said I feel like I was back in Louisiana. And you guys said to me, is that you want people to feel welcome here? That the pictures that are shown on television, that's not indicative of Baltimore?
Say it again, please.
It's not indicative of Baltimore, the pictures that we've seen on television?
Absolutely not. Baltimore is a lovely place to visit, a lovely place to live in, and we stand strong to rebuild our community.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. We're going to be out here until there's a resolution. Wolf, we have been listening to the press conference. They're listening to the officials as well. And so here we are at an event that is a positive event, a better reflection, they say, of what Baltimore really is.
Baltimore's a great city. We love Baltimore. I hope it stays that way and hope it remains peaceful. We're going to get back to you, Don. Thank you. I want to bring in Philip Banks right now. He's a former NYPD chief of department who's joining us. Thanks so much for joining us, Chief Banks. We saw the crowd today, very peaceful for all practical purposes, although there was some pepper spray after one protester was arrested. If this were your police department right now on this day after the violence, the arson, the looting we saw yesterday, what would you be doing? What would you want your officers to do to handle the situation?
Well, the first thing, Wolf, is that we have to protect life. We have to take property. So, and not any priority order. My priority would be to make sure that my officers were safe, certainly to make sure the people in that community were safe, certainly to protect the businesses. But I have been opening up dialogue with the people who are on the ground there to find out what these particular issues are, to get as much intel as we possibly can, and to just map out a strategy and an operational plan to ensure that people can protest peacefully. But certainly with the ruckus and the violence and the chaos, that's something that has to be stopped. A
quick question, Chief Banks. This is the worst rioting in Baltimore since 1968 in the aftermath of the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King. If it happened in Baltimore, it could happen elsewhere, right?
Certainly, it can happen elsewhere. And if I was a police chief in another city or a man in another city, I would have my people paying attention to exactly what's going on. I would get as much intel as I possibly can, because I'm certainly sure that the mayor and the police commissioner, the police chief in Baltimore did not think that this could happen over this particular incident. I'm sure they were paying attention to Charleston and Ferguson, and then it happened in Baltimore. So it certainly can happen. And that's why developing those intimate relationships with the proper people is very, very important. Once it gets to this point, it means that something you had done from this point prior did not work, and you need to change that.
All right, stand by for a moment. I want to bring in Joey Jackson, our HLN legal analyst. He's a former criminal defense attorney as well, maybe still a criminal defense attorney. I want to get back to the news that Evan Perez broke here in the Situation Room a little while ago, that on Friday the police will make their report available to state prosecutors on the behavior, the arrest of Freddie Gray. Eventually he died, as we know, after his neck was broken. He was in a coma in the hospital. They're going to make that evidence available to the prosecutors, but presumably it will remain secret. But you know the community, they want details, and they're getting increasingly impatient. How do you balance, Joey, the need to reassure the community that the right investigation is going forward, while at the same time not doing anything to undermine potential prosecution, the evidence available?
Wolf, that's a wonderful question, and let's start out here, and let's go to the general, then we'll get to the specific. In general, we're hearing from our leaders, and we have to keep in mind what this is all about. It's about Freddie Gray. It's about the over-aggressive policing that occurred as to him. It's about his death. It's about whether his death was warranted, and certainly the community and everyone thinks not. And so it's nice, of course, to hear from the leaders, and we are hearing from them, and they're very reassuring. But the true test of that leadership, Wolf, will be what are people doing and what reforms are instituted when the cameras aren't rolling, when Wolf Blitzer is not there to cross-examine or at least ask the important questions and hold the police and community accountable. What will happen? Will businesses reinvest in the community? What will occur in the community? Will people be upset in the community? So that's important. But moving forward... Hold
on, Joey, 1 second, because Brian Todd's got the protest leader with him. I quickly want to get to Brian. Go ahead, Brian.
Jay? Wolf, this is Jay Morris, and he's been leading this protest now for a couple of hours, this protest march through the streets of Baltimore. Jay, what is your goal? What is your goal tonight?
Our goal is to draw worldwide attention to the oppression of blacks in America. It's evident. We want freedom. We want independence. We want all our global citizens to rally with us. Go to joinymc.org. We are organizing. Rally with us, please.
You told me you do not want this to turn violent. Are you prepared to encourage these people not to turn violent tonight?
We are not animals. We are not beasts. We are not animals. We are not beasts. We will not turn violent. We are organizing. We are mobilizing. We are calling on world leaders and global leaders. Go to joinymc.org. Rally with us. We want freedom and the oppression of black people in America. Please understand our plight in America.
Thank you, Jay. I appreciate it. Thank you. All right, Wolf. A lot of energy in this crowd. You heard Mr. Morrison say they do not want violence. He has encouraged these people all night not to be violent. They have a ton of energy. He's saying it again, no violence. We're going to hope that this doesn't happen. Some of these protest marches last week turned tense, but they did not turn violent.
Now we're all people.
Last night was one night in the last week that turned violent. They are hoping on the streets that that was an anomaly, Wolf.
All right, Brian, stand by. I can see the passion there. I want to quickly go to Cornell W. Brooks, the president of the NAACP, for some reaction. Cornell, you hear that passion, you hear that fervor. What goes through your mind?
Well, what goes through my mind is that people are entitled to be passionate, to be angry, and to be righteously angry, if you will. But the acid test of leadership, the acid test of this movement is our ability to translate anger into action. Bear in mind, the NAACP, our headquarters is in Baltimore. This is our hometown. Thurgood Marshall made his home in Baltimore. We care deeply about this city, deeply about what happened to Freddie Gray, deeply about this challenge. But at the end of the day, what we have to do is we have to translate our anger into specific actions, calling for reform, pushing for change in policing. The fact of the matter is, on Friday, we've got to make sure that the people in this city are prepared for having some information, no information, or information that they're unhappy with, so that we're prepared to push for real reform long-term and in the short term. All right,
Cornell, hold on for a moment. I want to go quickly back to Brian Todd. Brian, you got more over there. What's going on?
Wolf, back with Jay Morrison, the march leader. Jay, I want you to tell me what you were feeling last night when all that burning, all that looting was going on in your neighborhood.
What I felt last night was that it was a distraction. I'm a real estate guy. I understand the value of property, but the distraction was we all looked away from the 6 police officers that know what happened to Freddie Gray, and no one's been arrested. Let's stop being distracted by property. 6 officers know how that man neck was broke and spine was broke. Why are no officers arrested to this day? If any American citizen was around a dead body, 6 of us, we'd be arrested.
What happens on Friday if you don't get the answers you want?
No comment.
Okay, Wolf, we're marching on.
Continuing the march, let's get reaction from Philip Banks, the former NYPD chief of department. What do you think, Philip?
I think that the leadership in Baltimore have their hands full. But certainly what I'm hearing through the lines there is that people are upset and people are angry. They have a right to do so. But I do hear that there is room there to make those changes and make some progress. So while it appears that we're at DEFCON 4, I would certainly suggest to the mayor and certainly to Tony Batts, the police chief there, is that there's room there to make some progress. It may seem like we're at DEFCON 4, but what I'm hearing from, you shifted to the person who played professional basketball, the comments, if they were accurate comments coming from those gang members down there, it looks like there is some room that we can come to a compromise here, but be very clear, law and order must prevail.
You're absolutely right. Jeffrey Toobin, you've done a lot of reporting from Baltimore on these gangs there. Now we're hearing, you just heard in Don Lemon's report, these gang members saying they weren't causing this violence. They were trying to prevent the violence. They were trying to stop the looting. They didn't need the looting to go on. They have their own sources of income.
Yeah, Wolf, allow me to express some skepticism about the benevolence of the Crips and the Bloods and the Black Guerrilla family. These are killers. They are drug dealers. These are people who are not going to save Baltimore. The Black Guerrilla family in particular, the story I wrote about them in the New Yorker illustrated how they took over the main jail in Baltimore, the Baltimore City Detention Center. They controlled it. They brought in drugs. They brought in cell phones. They made money off of it. The idea that these gangs are doing anything for the public good or anything other than continuing their reign of terror over the city is laughable to me. And I think to the extent the city is trusting them or relying on them, they're going to head for disaster.
You agree, Tom Fuentes?
Absolutely. And they're largely responsible for the more than 600 blacks killed in the last 27 months in Baltimore. And it doesn't seem that everybody cares deeply about everybody except those people that were just killed in the last 2 years.
What about that? Phil Banks, in New York City, you had to deal with a lot of these gangs as well. Is it possible, as they claim today, they're trying to cause peace as opposed to warfare on the streets of Baltimore? Or what's your reaction when you hear these kinds of comments?
Well, I will say this, not knowing the politics of Baltimore, there have been gang members in New York City who have turned a different leaf.